My name is Nick. I'm an engineer at Kasten, and I'll be presenting a demo of the immutable backup feature that will be part of the K10 4.0 release. To do so, I'll be simulating a two-pronged ransomware attack, both on the live data and on the application backups. I'll demonstrate that K10 can quickly and successfully recover my application with its data intact after this ransomware attack takes place. So the setup is as follows. I have a very important production application running in my Kubernetes cluster. For simplicity in this demo, it's a MySQL database containing all of my very important account data. I've been backing up my app frequently using K10 and exporting the restore points to an S3 bucket. Most importantly, the bucket I'm exporting to has object blocking enabled. This means that any version of an object in the bucket can have a retention period applied to it. And no one, not even an admin, can delete or tamper with that data during that retention period. So to demonstrate, I'll be taking on a role of an attacker. The attacker has compromised the Kubernetes cluster and has additionally succeeded in sniffing out the object store credentials. I'll start the attack by encrypting the live data directly in the application database, and then I'll attack the object store where K10 has been exporting the restore points. And finally, I can then contact the victim to ransom back their very important data for a hefty price. After the attack succeeds, I'll resume the role of the victim who has just realized their predicament. I'll demonstrate that a restore from an immutable backup held off-site in the object lock bucket can thwart the ransomware attack and recover my critical data. So let's jump into the demo. So here is my production application in K10. It's a MySQL database with a PVC attached. We can take a look at the data in the database. So here is a table of my accounts with a list of names and the associated balances. And this is critical data for my business, and I want to make sure that that's protected. So to do so, I'm protecting my application with a policy that I've called locked policy, and you can see it's protecting my production app. And what it does, it will create a snapshot hourly and export that hourly snapshot to an object store that's pointed to by this locking profile profile. So this locking profile points to an S3 bucket called Kasten ransomware demo locked. You can see object locking is enabled, and it has a protection period of 30 days, which correlates with the immutable retention period that's applied to objects in this bucket. And again, objects with retention applied cannot be tampered with. So we can see that if we look at the dashboard, this policy is already run a couple times, and we have some backups that have been exported to the locked bucket. We can take a look at the S3 management console. Here's the bucket in question, Kasten ransomware demo locked. We can see that the K10 data, the restore points that have already been exported here are found in the bucket, and that's under this K10 prefix. And if we look under the properties, we can confirm that object lock is indeed enabled on this bucket and with a default retention period. And additionally, bucket versioning is always enabled when object lock is enabled. All right, so now I'm going to put on my attacker hat. And I have compromised this Kubernetes cluster, and I've been silently watching for a few months. In that time, I've seen this important looking application, and I've watched K10 take backups and export them. I've been able to sniff out the object store provider credentials, and now I'm ready to attack. So I have a script that is going to find that table and encrypt the important values in it, and that'll be the attack on the database. So I have database attack scripts that I will run. So I found the table, and I've successfully encrypted its values. Now, I also want the victims to pay me for access to their data. So I want to prevent them from simply restoring from their backups. So I'll run another script that takes advantage of the fact that I have the object store credentials, and I will delete all of the objects in their backup bucket. Run another attack. Okay. Now the objects are deleted. All that's left now is to contact the victims for payment. Okay. So I'm going to go back to playing the role of the victim now. I'm going to check up on my critical application data. Well, that doesn't look good. So it looks like the critical data is now replaced with some encrypted or garbage value. And that kind of worries me. So let me check up on my backups in my backup folder. Objects, refresh, and looks like there's no objects. That's kind of scary until I remember that I'm using a bucket with object locking enabled. So we can check out the previous versions of the objects in the bucket here, and we can see that all the K10 backup data seems to be intact. So let's go ahead and start a restore of the application from the K10 dashboard. And we'll just pick the most recent restore point. And we should see that restore starting up on the actions list very soon. There we go. So it's worth mentioning while we wait that if an attacker has compromised the Kubernetes cluster, then K10 was probably also compromised. I've glossed over this for simplicity, but K10 already supports disaster recovery of its own data. So now immutability adds another layer of security as K10 can protect itself with that same mechanism. For this demo scenario, we're assuming we can bring back K10 intact, and we'll then need to recover from a restore point that's living in this compromised object store bucket. It's also worth mentioning that while this type of protection might extend to other potential avenues of data loss, not just ransomware attacks or other kinds of malicious activity. Maybe an engineer accidentally empties your bucket with all of your backups. Accidents do happen. So using an object locking bucket to make K10's backups immutable will protect against more than just malicious attacks. So now we'll be waiting for the application to come ready. Check its status. So it looks like the data restore is terminating now. And we've started initializing our MySQL pod. And as soon as that comes ready, we will check that we've recovered all of our data. Okay, it looks like the pod is now running. And we should see this restore. Yep, the restore completed successfully in under 4 minutes from the time when we started the restore from the exported restore point. And we can double check our data, make sure that that's still intact. Just retrieve the password. And there we go. The data has been completely recovered to the state prior to the attack, and our app is back up and running. So, in conclusion, with the release of K10 4.0, K10 will be able to support immutable backups so that even in the face of a ransomware attacker that has compromised both the Kubernetes cluster and the object store credentials, and has deleted or otherwise tampered with the backups that were exported there, K10 will still be able to recover that critical application data. Thank you very much.